My name's O'Rourke. I'm the CEO of Ashtons Legal. We as a firm, we're East Anglian based across the whole of the region, multi-service sort of firm, servicing clients both locally, nationally and in some instances internationally. Broadly speaking, about £20 million turnover business. Well, obviously there's been a lot of hype around AI and robotics for a number of years now in the press and the media. And whilst the hype might suggest that everything's going to happen a lot sooner than reality might be the case, we are still nonetheless aware that the world is changing around us. Various other industries have already been disrupted. You look at what happened to blockbusters, HMV, what's happening to retail with Amazon, etc. A lot of commentators would suggest the legal services market is one that is ripe for disruption. We operate in a very traditional way. So we've been looking around for a while at providers of solutions that we could start testing to see how some form of automation using robotics would work for us. T-Impact was interesting for us because actually they were the ones who suggested a sort of license model that allowed us to test the water on a very low-level investment basis and then build up and scale up from there. Whereas a lot of the other providers were looking to seek large sums of investment without any proof of concept first. So T-Impact appealed to us from that perspective. Yeah, well, we identified a number of areas where we thought robotics might play a part in helping us find solutions for sort of product bottlenecks or productivity issues we had within the business. So our first step was to actually have T-Impact come in and work with us in identifying what they were and then looking at where we might apply robotics as a first trial. And looking for really something that could give us a good proof of concept before then looking at how we might extend it to other parts of the business. So I think we came up with about 20 different areas of work that we could apply robotics to, and then we just picked one based on what we thought would be an easy proof of concept to start with. Well, the solution we adopted was a data cleansing solution. So actually, in terms of a client front-facing, it won't have a massive impact. We deliberately chose that. It was a proof of concept for us. So we're looking for something that we could take comfort in works behind the scenes rather than exposing our clients to an experiment to start with. So from that perspective, we expect just to see cleaner data in our databases. But that proof of concept then will enable us to look at how we can then build out for future developments to things that might be more client-facing. Ultimately, we're looking for things that will improve productivity for the business, speed processes up, and in some instances create greater levels of accuracy. You don't have the human error creeping in when we get tired or towards the end of the day when we're feeling a bit jaded. The robotics doesn't have that problem. Certainly, my experience of working with T-Impact has been a very positive one. Some suppliers you find treat you very much as they're a supplier and you're the customer, and there's no interaction or engagement between the two. As I said earlier, we signed up with T-Impact because we quite liked the model they put together, which allowed us a small-scale proof of concept trial at relatively modest cost compared to some of the competitors. But that willingness to collaborate and work in partnership has also borne through in the way in which they actually operate as well. So we've seen that there were undoubtedly challenges that have arisen during the course of this process. We were new to using robotics, and obviously we were providing T-Impact with a new problem that they hadn't dealt with within the legal sector before. But I think the way we've worked together on that has been a truly collaborative partnership. And that's the way I like to do business, working together to find the solutions rather than the sort of supplier customer type arrangement you sometimes get, where every single thing you find you've got to pay extra for, and that's not been the case with T-Impact. It's a set fee, although there's been some extra work along the way, they've absorbed that cost themselves. I think the legal sector at the moment is still relatively behind the curve in this sort of use of robotics and AI. I think there's a fear, an understandable fear in my mind, that none of us want to rush in and buy the latest Betamax rather than VHS of a solution. So we have been criticised as being a very traditional industry. I think those criticisms are fair to a large degree. There are some justifications for that, but nonetheless, you look at the world around us, the way banking's changed over the years. We mentioned earlier retail, and entertainment industry as well, such as HMV and blockbusters. It's going to happen. We're in a world of ever increasing amounts of data. The ability to handle and analyse that data is becoming humanly impossible. So we are going to have to embrace this world of AI and robotics, just to enable us to continue to deliver the services that clients will demand in the future. So it's happening. I think there are a few firms that are trying, in the mid-market space, trying new solutions. Ourselves amongst them, with you guys at T Impact, and we're just finding our way at this stage. I think it will accelerate in due course. It has to at some point. The demand from clients will continue to push us in that direction, as with our regulators as well. I think you've got to look at the problem the right way round. I think there is a temptation at times with all the hype around AI and robotics and how it can solve all the problems that you may be facing to sort of look for the AI or robotic solution first and then try and apply it to whatever problem. I think actually what worked well with us with T Impact was actually they did come in and say, look, take a step back. What are your problems? Identify those first and then try and identify whether there's a robotic or other solution to the problem in the first instance. Robotics won't always be the answer. It may be just a human issue that you've got to deal with and training, etc. So I think actually starting with the problem first and then trying to see which of the solutions would apply is the best way around it. From our perspective, having done that sort of process to some degree, choosing a provider which allowed us, as I said earlier, the sort of relatively painless entry in a monetary sense, proof of concept trial has been the way for us. We don't want to spend a huge fortune on something and then 18 months later find it hasn't worked and that we're out of pocket. This has allowed us to build something in a 3-month time frame, at relatively modest cost, and assess its performance within the following 3 months after that. Not at the granular level, no. I am aware, sort of the machine learning aspect of going down the UI path, and that has been a big thing for us because our data cleansing exercise, we've got 370 odd people in the business, and they're all inputting data in slightly different ways. So actually having someone who can spot that and over time identify those nuances and learn rather than having to be taught is a big aspect for us. So we're expecting to see continued improvement in the robotic solution over the 3-month trial after go live as it continues to evolve. T Impact introduced this UI path, and it was the first I'd come across that. But what was exciting for us was the way in which UiPath allows you to do machine learning. So not only building the robot for day one, but actually how that robot then using UiPath will continue to evolve over the period whilst it's working, using that machine learning to improve its performance. And that's what we're looking really keen to see over the 3 months of the trial period. That's a good question. I think it changes every time I think about it, to be honest with you. At the moment now, I think actually we probably have started with a more challenging project than we actually envisaged it would be at the outset. And we could have started with something that would have been less challenging both for T Impact and for ourselves. So as I mentioned earlier, T Impact have had to absorb some additional work and costs in getting us to where we are. And the value of that work is yet to be tested. I think we could have probably chosen something that would have been client-facing. It would have been a bigger, braver step for us, but that's hindsight for you. We deliberately chose not to. But now that we're there, I think we would have liked to have chosen something that would have had a more immediate impact for our clients. I think using robotics, machine learning and AI, the sort of ubiquitous terms that apply to all those going forward, looking at it from a client perspective, I think that's where it can have the real big impact. I think law firms yet have really to seize upon the opportunity of building more client portals, allowing clients then to effectively build their own casework, etc. And I think with robotic software in the background, that could progress matters automatically via clients doing the inputting of the data rather than lawyers. And so that would actually speed up processing. It would also probably lead to more accuracy because the input of the data is coming directly from the client, so they know how to spell their name rather than the lawyer that might misspell it, for instance. And it would give the clients more control over their matters and more. So I see that as a key one, actually portal working, helping clients actually self-service their own cases to a degree, allowing the lawyers to step in as and when needed and processing that. I think a second use of robotics that will help the client but be in the background. We have to do a number of regulatory hoops with regards to matter inceptions for clients, so setting up a file, doing their due diligence, ID, etc., money laundering checks. It's a very manual process within most law firms at the moment, but it's a standardised process. We all have to jump through the same hoops. There are a number of things that I think you could automatically look up and check and verify using robotics. So that would take some of the pain away in terms of delay for clients, and also pain away from the lawyers who are effectively fulfilling an admin task that's regulatorily required, but not something they see as part of their day job. And finally, I do think there would be some types of work that actually you could probably automate all completely. So actually clients wouldn't need to use the lawyer at all. They could use an automated process that would take them all the way through. There is a use case in America, a college student who built a parking fine app, which allows people to appeal against their own parking fines, and it takes them through the whole process. And I think we'll see more of that coming into legal services in due course. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've yet come across the perfect solution to introducing change and getting people comfortable with change. But I think that the first point is to understand why people are fearful of it in the first place. Change is uncomfortable for most adults. 0 to 5, we're changing regularly. We're falling over and getting back up and running around and falling over again and learning to run and walk and talk, etc. From school age onwards, we're pretty much then pushed into a mindset which sort of says, oh, you're good at that or you're not good at that, and therefore we tend to sort of step back from change that may make us look less efficient. And I think any change, of course, does put people into a new environment. It means that they will be less productive for the short term until they've got through that new learning curve. So understanding why they're fearful of it, explaining to them, taking on board their fears, but then explaining to them why and the importance of why. Rather than just sort of denying their fears and trying to push them through into something that they're not comfortable with. So I do think that change management piece is probably the hardest part of any business, because it's the human element and it's getting people on board with what you're trying to do. And that takes time. That is a process that takes time. And again, from our perspective, another reason for using a relatively small proof of concept type module that was working behind the scenes. It allows us to expose our staff to that relatively pain-free, not entirely pain-free, but relatively pain-free experience of robotic software, so they can see what it's doing for us, how it's improving our ability to service our clients without them perceiving a threat to their jobs. So gradual immersion, I would guess, is probably how we're dealing with it at the moment.